you are.
How do I look?
Honestly, things like there's always like a little bit of a bump before we smooth sail. Look at Rosie. Before we start talking about yoga, can we just talk about how cute my dog is?
Can we also talk about the fact that I'm thinking about getting a neck tattoo?
I'm personally supportive. However, I think you need to think about it a little bit more.
I know I'm probably gonna get it in the winter.
In the winter, when your neck could like be under a turtleneck, when turtlenecks are in.
My small town and everyone being like, Bradshaw Wish got his neck tattooed.
I just think you need to think about it because you make really quick decisions.
No, I didn't.
Okay. I love you though. So thank you for joining us. We're going to record this. Wait, is it recording? I've never done this before.
Yeah, it's automatically recording and then it's gonna ask to save to your story.
Okay, that's what we want to do.
Do I
So
look I have an alternative look?
you look like I don't know, like a hipster hot yoga teacher serving looks.
Okay, so what are top tonight?
So Bradshaw and I are going to meet on Wednesdays. We're going to go live and we're going to talk about something that we've thought of as yoga teachers, that something that we question, things we think about, and we'll take questions too because it's more like an open discussion. Um, Today, I wanted to talk about teaching asana or postures that you might not have in your personal practice. So, Bradshaw, do you teach things that you physically have not had in your practice? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's hard when you can do everything. Just
Oh
kidding.
yeah, when you're like so talented, when you were just like born in a handstand.
I cannot do everything. Um, I there, I think that it. I think that there are some really skilled yoga teachers that I know that can't do certain poses, but can teach them really well because they're very knowledgeable about sequencing, about anatomy, and about the body, and have been around. Um, they've been around the block enough to like know what they're doing without having the physical experience of doing it. I think that with most poses, it's obviously better to have an embodied experience, but I don't think that it's, if the teacher is skilled enough, that it's bad for them to teach a skill that they may not physically be able to do.
Hmm. Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and I was like, I personally don't teach things that I can't physically do myself, but then I remembered that I do, and I was like, wait, I lied. I have, and it's because I've I've like almost done it. If I'm gonna be real, I'm just gonna talk about how I will teach lolasana. I cannot do lolasana. It is so hard for me. Just side note, yeah, you could do it because again, Bradshaw's perfect, everyone.
I know,
Um,
but look, so hard.
Lolasana is so hard, but I literally like I saw it on Instagram like in 2015. I like saw someone doing Lolasana and it was like hashtag Lolasana. And I thought it was I thought it was the hardest skill and I literally thought it was LOL asana because because it was just like holy crap, how did anyone do this? I was like, oh yeah, LOL, like that's unattainable. But I will teach that because with blocks, with like adducting my arms, with like knowing the shoulders need to come forward, I can sort of feel it out. But there's other things that I totally cannot do and I probably will never teach. But I think you're right. I think if you have the skill, the knowledge, the awareness of anatomy, alignment, foundation, and you're just a boss, you can pull it off.
I
I
think
do, yeah.
I I don't think that it's smart for newer teachers to be teaching stuff they don't know how to do necessarily. I think that like if you're going to teach something you don't know how to do, you should have a lot of knowledge of how to do that thing, even though you can't do it.
Hmm. I agree. Can you give an example? Like, can you think of a
Like,
scenario?
yeah, let's say like there's a new teacher and they want to teach handstands, but they can't do handstands. And they haven't spent a lot of time learning the technique of how to do a handstand, what's going on in the shoulder, what's going on in the spine, what's going on in the pelvis, like what's going on in the body to teach that skill. I've done that. There's like a whole, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on like same topic, but different
Do
point
it.
of view.
I'm with you.
I can do handstands, but I didn't know how to teach handstands until like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the other problem. Like sometimes I think that some teachers that are really physically skilled they're like at a detriment. Like it
Mm-hmm.
actually, it doesn't help their teaching
Yeah.
because they can just do something. And then like, if it's like, I never think about what when I learned how to do a handstand, I just was like, just stay up. I wasn't thinking about what my shoulders are doing. I could just do the thing. So since I could do the thing, it was hard for me to teach the thing because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what it was like to not do the thing.
You need to put yourself in the beginner's mind. And like, I think it helps to be a beginner at something to help like remind you of that. I was the same way with splits. Like, and I would just like fall into splits and be like, yeah, just like plop down. In the very beginning as a new teacher, obviously I would see that like the way I would demo things as a very new teacher was not what I was seeing in the room. And that was really humbling. And it taught me so much. I was like, oh my God, I need to just like look at people. I need to like stop doing what I'm doing and just see what's happening and then teach to that. So I'm kind of going on a tangent, but about the embodied experience, I think it is so important to help inform your cues too, because then you might cue something differently than others because you're like, oh, it actually, like for me, lolasana, I have to cue the arms adducting. Like I need those elbows hugging in, and that's not a typical cue, but that's the only way I could get like my shins like a half an inch off the floor.
Do you think because it turns your chest on?
Maybe I was thinking my serratus. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that like pushing down. It's obviously a lot of the sits muscles, and then I don't know, depression, lats. Hey, Rebecca. Rebecca, I'm going to answer your message. I saw it, but I didn't do it yet. Um, I have one other thing that I think is interesting here. I will teach headstand in privates, not in a group class. That's a whole other discussion. But I personally don't do them anymore. And but I once upon a time did. Like right now, it's not good for my neck. I've got some like cervical disc issues going on, but I did them for years. I know what it's like to be new at that. I know what it's like to um, need to find stability and structure and like honestly learn from the mistakes I made and like not mess up your neck.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool too. So I think it's cool to like keep teaching. By cool, I mean, I think it's totally appropriate to teach things that you've experienced but may not do anymore. And I think you're going to go through this too. If like you made a post on our Instagram about like low back stuff that you're switching up your practice, this is probably going to be something that you think about more and more as you find what's comfortable for you.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that today, and I guess this is too, but are we, for me, yoga is about longevity, about doing this practice for a long, extended period of time. And maybe this is what we can talk about next week. I think that it's important to recognize and realize that our body changes, and with that, our mindset changes, and with that, our practice changes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm more interested in like not sweating a bunch and getting my heart rate up. I'm like doing crazy postures. I'm like more focused on learning becoming a more skillful mover and a more balanced person on and off my mat.
Mm-hmm.
PSS. That's
Yeah.
nothing we're talking about, but whatever.
No, it does. I think it goes into what I just said about like your practice changing and but you still inherently teach like Vinyasa Flow classes. So you're gonna have that dichotomy.
Yeah.
Um, I think both of us like started with like yoga being something that we like aspire to challenge ourselves with physically. And like
What do you
honestly, like
know?
what's that?
I think that's most people. Not all people, but I feel like that's like most younger people that practice yoga, that start practicing yoga, I think that's where they're coming from.
I always had a teacher, one of my first teachers would be like, you get them in the door through like the guise of fitness, and then you give them that extra something special that they didn't know that they came here for. And that's always stuck with me. So I think that's true, but for me, it's actually two ways. Like I came to yoga because I was like anxious and I just did like hatha and would breathe. And then I like was bored with it. I wasn't ready for that. I was too young. And then I came back to it over, the course of the next couple of years for that physical challenge. But I think what happens then is that we like push ourselves. We're like actually too much in the ego, trying to like push through more flexibility, harder, faster, whatever, and then we didn't practice for longevity. We didn't practice to the point where like you can practice it every day. That's what we want. We want to be able to practice it every day without feeling achy. Achy.
I don't That's a like a broader movement discussion. Because
Yeah.
I've done hit, like I've kind of like run the gamut in terms of fitness and different styles of fitness and working out. And I was thinking today while I was teaching class, I want to move for the rest of my life. I don't want to be always injured.
Hmm.
And I think that we're kind of like culturally in this space of like, we have to feel like we're dying to feel like we've done something. And I don't think that that's right. I don't think it's bad to, it's a balance. Like, I don't think it's bad to sweat or like be challenged, but I think that there's a fine line between how hard are you actually doing something, then you hurt
Hmm.
yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of injury in fitness. I mean, there is, and in yoga and in all forms of movement. And sometimes that's just like, I don't know, part of the journey.
Hmm. We have so many different topics we could talk about. I think we should recap teaching. So this episode is really this I'm calling it an episode. This session's really about teaching yoga skills that you might not have in your personal practice. Let's recap. If you are choosing to do this, I think we can like set like a couple guidelines of the best way to go about it. I think it helps to know the alignment, what muscles are working, which ones are strengthening, which ones are lengthening, where things go, how the body moves in space. What else do you think
I
people?
think also talking to people who have that embodied experience,
I was going to say that too. I think that's good
but
advice.
more than talk to more than one person, because five people could do a pose, and how it feels in those five people's bodies is going to be completely different.
Mm-hmm. I
Not
agree with
completely,
you.
but like for most bodies, it's going to feel different.
Yeah, totally depends on your makeup and so many other
And
factors.
I think like lastly, just having the education and the experience teaching
Mm-hmm.
to teach poses you don't know. I think you can teach poses a day. I'm sorry, that you can't physically do. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's totally fine to do that. I just think that you have to have the skill set and have a lot of experience teaching to teach the skill.
I agree. And I would also add in, I would get creative and try to find a variation where you can turn on the similar muscles that are being engaged. So I think it's going to use your creativity to like uh, approach doing this. Like, for instance, oftentimes with handstand, like you're not going to start in the middle of the room. You're going to start probably towards a wall or maybe with a skillful person who can assist you. So this is just like a very broad, you know,
Exactly.
broad example, but this could be with anything. This could be with any props. Like, can you say we were doing like, we've been talking about Kapinjalasana a lot lately. Like maybe you do it. Should I explain what Kapinjalasana is? Like side plank with a quad stretch in the top leg. Like maybe you are like, okay, I physically can't get that quad. Maybe you find a way to use the strap, or like you bring the bottom hand to a block or a chair or something else, or like lean on a wall and then like go on a diagonal. So I'm just like spewing things off at the top of my mind. But I think anytime there's like a problem to solve for, you can get creative, and this is where like you will shine.
Totally. I want to say one more thing, and that
Sure.
is like unless you want it, some people don't want to teach really challenging physical asanas, and
Hmm.
that's okay. Like there are great teachers that don't teach really challenging poses. Just I don't
Hmm.
know. Remember that.
I agree. And I think our conversation about like going that route is a testament to that. We're kind of in our own practices going that way, but we also have a student base that wants certain things too. So um, that's a whole other conversation.
That's
But
too because I think that as yoga teachers, you can have your personal practice. It's a balance of like teaching to the masses and then teaching what you want to teach.
mhm.
Because sometimes, and like you can, I think that there is a balance. There's something in between, but like if we go all in one direction, it's like sometimes hard to fill a room.
It's true. I mean, for example, in my Vinyasa 2-3 class, I'm not gonna do my like personal hatha practice that I did that day. Like it just
Mhm, of
doesn't fit the format. So there's things like that you have to consider too,
course.
stylistically. But I think it's all everything you do influences it. So um, yeah, what should we talk about next week? Let's give like a little preview
Let's
of
talk
next
about
week.
beginners next week.
Teaching beginners. I love that topic. I could talk about that for a long time.
Well, let's do it.
Okay, can we leave the viewers with a view of Rosie?
That's Gianna's. I was gonna say Gianna's cat, but it's not her cat.
She's a beautiful little thing. Is
Um,
is it weird that yes, it is weird.
you're like, is it weird?
Like she doesn't have full control over her tongue. So like when she gets the idea to kiss me, it's just like wherever it goes, I have to be like, good job, Rosie. I accept you.
All
Uh,
right. Well, we'll talk next week, and we'll talk before then. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you soon.
and we're gonna post this. Bye.
Bye.
Keep up the good practice. How do I get out of here? I don't know what to do.